you very much, Tony. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. Excellencies, fellow presidents, friends and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to participating in an ICA Congress once again, and especially to be doing in Bangkok, where I have so many good friends, but first and foremost, it's because I feel that I am among family. I want to thank you, Madam Director, that I have, and my good friend from GIT. I have wonderful memories together when we had the Congress in Bangkok a couple of years ago. And I'm very happy that since then we have another stage with our other part of the family, which is ICA, in bringing back and once again in Bangkok, in Thailand, what is the importance of Thailand into the entire jewelry industry, the entire pipeline of the jewelry industry. I think that from my side is a very special honor to be here again, and a very special honor to give a very little contribute, if I can and if I am capable to do that, to what the jewelry industry in Thailand is today. I wish all of you and my friend from the Thai Gems and Jewelry Traders Association and everybody else involved in the jewelry industry, gemstones and jewelry industry in this country, to flourish once more in order to be equal to the beautiful expression of flowers, which is the orchid in this country that we all love. So thank you very much for your effort. As part of the government, we truly enjoy, and we are continuing to do every effort to working together to benefit, especially the Thai gems and jewelry industry. Thank you for that. Going back, in fact, the case of several of individuals in the room today, like Clément, Pramod, Jean-Claude, Jeffrey, I have to mention quite all of you, but otherwise it will be too late for the coffee break. So the subject of our discussion forms the backbone of my presentation today. Is somebody take care of the slides? Okay. No. Is this one? Yes? Right. In October of last year, the CIBJO Congress was held in Bogota. As one would expect, given Colombia's dominant position as a producer of high-quality emeralds, there was a strong focus on the color stone. And in fact, the Congress itself was immediately preceded by a World Emerald Symposium. I don't know where Guillermo is. Guillermo, where are you? There. You may remember that was an incredible event, and you may remember that we mentioned many times what we were able with the Thai government to bring and pass from Thailand to Colombia, where there are, let's say, similar in somehow situation, but in both cases we were talking in Colombia about the example that we took in Thailand during the Congress 2017. But the geographic location of the event was not the only reason that color gemstones were in the industry spotlights. In the month leading up the Congress, the Responsible Jewelry Council had let it be known the gemstones, along with silver, would be included in the newest edition of its Code of Practices. This had not come as a surprise to us. CIBJO had been approached by RJC requesting that we participate in the review process, and several of our officers were among the industry participants who participated and commented on the RJC document. My Vice President Roland enough to know exactly as well Clement and many other officers, both from ICA and CIBJO. It is always the case in CIBJO. The process was carried out in the most transparent way possible. RJC has requested earlier that they receive time during Congress agenda to review their new Code of Practices and receive comments. We suggested that it be opened to a wider forum of colored gemstones industry participants, including trade organizations that are associated with CIBJO, and obviously ICA was included. The session was scheduled for the afternoon before the first official day of the CIBJO Congress, and we decided that in the morning we would conduct a preparatory session which would only include representatives of CIBJO and Colored Gemstones Association. Several of the people who participate are with us today in the room. We were, of course, aware of the general sentiment of the sector about the prospective addition of colored gemstones into the RJC COP, but I think that even we were taken aback by the level of concern, anxiety, and in some cases even anger. The general sentiment about a good number of the participants was that the colored stone industry was being pushed to introduce standards that, from a financial and physical perspective, many of its members were unable to do, with only a small number of players having the necessary resources. At the time of meeting in Bogota, the RJC Code of Practice had already been applied in the diamond and precious metal sector, but as the colored stone representative at the meeting pointed out, in those are part of the industry, larger companies are already dominant. In diamond, for example, close to 80% of the volume of rough are mined by only 7 companies, and more than 90% in terms of value. In the colored stone sector, the situation is reversed. Artisanal and small-scale miners account for more than 80% of production, both in terms of volume and value. What became obvious to many of us in Bogota was that something was needed to bridge what had become the divide between what most in the colored gemstones industry believed was possible in terms of responsible sourcing, and what a growing number of retailers and consumers were coming to believe were necessary standards. In our opinion, CIBJO was the organization that could help build the bridge. The need to find solution is not one that can be put off indefinitely. Several of the world's largest retailers are already demanding that their suppliers become RJC compliant as a condition of doing business with them. And these include major players such as Signet, just to mention one of the many. And just several weeks ago, the Plum Club in the United States became the first trade group to require all members to sign up to RJC, and I learned that also GIT has become member. I don't know where Nawal is in the room. Nawal, where are you? Good. CIBJO has not been caught by surprise. About a year earlier, we had decided to investigate whether the method by which we have compiled our standards for diamond, color stones, pearl, precious metal, coral, and gemological laboratories could apply to the subject of responsible sourcing. We asked ourselves, would it be possible to create a responsible sourcing protocol that could be universally accepted by larger and smaller enterprises, which would meet the ethical standards that our industry expects from itself, and at the same time, it is acceptable from the perspective of the international community. Let me be clear. Our goal in producing this document was not to compete with RJC. With this organization, we cooperate constantly on any other due diligence system, nor would it be something that we could enforce or police. Like the other CIBSIO Blue Books, the standard and guidelines contained in the proposed CIBSIO responsible sourcing document would be recommendation as opposed to condition of membership. However, they should come to serve as benchmark for responsible sourcing system developed and applied by industry organizations and commercial bodies worldwide and for governments. You may remember, Madam Director, that we made a number of proposals during 2017, and I'm happy to see that the Thai government, with great vision, is going forward in that direction. Congratulations for that. In many respects, I would describe the process that we initiated as historic, and I use the word most deliberately. Over the decades, CIBSIO has established itself as the primary arbiter of the jewelry industry standard because of the way in which we operate. Decisions are not made behind closed doors, but in the full light of the day, with an open invitation for all parties to participate. As anyone who has been to a CIBSIO Congress before can attest, open participation in the name of the game, all subjects are addressed candidly and discussed at length, experts are invited to give their opinion. We do not seek the most convenient solution, but rather the fairest and consumer-attentive ones. The moral authority of CIBSIO Blue Books, which is where we record our set of industry standards, is vested in the process by which they are created. It is self-critical and ongoing, working on the belief that perfection can be aspired but never attained, and that conditions are constantly changing and we need to adapt. An operating principle of the responsible sourcing document was that it would be inclusive, meaning that there is an expectation that the standards, guidelines, and system that describe can reasonably applied by all members of the industry, irrespective of size or financial capacity. Let me pay tribute to one of our big family, who is Roland Naftul, President of Sector A and first President of ICA. Under his leadership, the sector that talk about gemstones, diamonds, pearls, coral, precious metal, and others, has found a leadership in Mr. Naftul that is very difficult and, to me, up to now, impossible to look to somebody else that can do that job as he does. Roland, thank you very much. To chair the special committee that we set up to manage the process was appointed Philip Alden, a former managing director of the World Gold Council, who has been a consultant with Signet in the formulation in its responsible sourcing standard, and who has liaised on the subject of a range of international organizations, including OECD, RJC, LBMA, the European Union, and others. Our intention from the beginning was that Responsible Sourcing Committee would evolve into Responsible Sourcing Commission, among whose responsibility it will be to maintain what will be the CIBJO Blue Book of universal standards and guidelines for responsible sourcing in the greater jewelry industry, adding to and amending it and when necessary to ensure its continuing relevance. The Commission will also develop programs for educating the gemstones and jewelry industry about the principle contained in the CIBJO Responsible Sourcing Book and advise and liaise with companies, organizations and governments seeking to develop their own responsible sourcing system guidelines. The Commission will also develop and create tools and other materials that will assist individuals, companies and organizations apply the principle contained in the CIBJO Responsible Sourcing Book, with a special emphasis on meeting the needs of small and medium-sized enterprises. I will not, at this stage, provide a detailed outline of the Responsible Sourcing Blue Book. It is available at no cost on the CIBJO website, located at www.cibjo.org, and I invite you to download and read it and keep a copy available for your reference and for your staff. There is another document in the CIBJO website that could be downloaded freely, which is the do's and don'ts, which is a simple guide where you can see in green what is necessary to do and in red what is better not to do. And from this, I would like to thank not only Roland, but also Ken Scarrett. Is Ken Scarrett in the room? Not yet. And other number of members of our Sector A, because they did a truly great job. We have received a lot of compliments from all around the world for the easy going of a simple guide like this. But to summarize very briefly, the CIBJO Responsible Sourcing Blue Book is based on the OECD Responsible Supply Chain of Minerals from conflict-affected and high-risk area, and also support the Kimberley process and the UN guiding principles of human rights, as Prida was mentioning previously. It also takes into account anti-money laundering and anti-corruption practices. It spells out very basic due diligence procedures that are reasonably within the grasp of even small color gemstones companies. First, firms will need to appoint a compliance officer, introduce a responsible sourcing policy appropriate to its business type and level, have terms of business with suppliers, and be able to implement them through invoices and other documentation. The second step is to understand and map your supply chain. To do this, you will need to ask who are your suppliers, what are your terms of businesses, what the documentation do you collect on product provenance. This is the way that you can identify risks and then carry out more due diligence to mitigate or eliminate them. Companies can choose whether they wish to demonstrate their compliance by being certified by an independent body such as RJC, but if they stick to the guidelines in the document, they can reliably claim to be sourcing their supply responsibility. Now let's return to the CIBJO Congress in Bogota. The responsible sourcing guidance document which preceded the actual Blue Book was formally presented in Colombia. The question that we posed then to our colleagues from the colors gemstones sector was whether it was a protocol that they could support. We explained that it was a volunteer applied system, but it included the basic building blocks of a comprehensive compliance system like that of RJC and several other bodies. The answer came several weeks later during the Gem Show in Tucson, but at that stage, the CIBJO Board of Directors that formally approved the new Responsible Sourcing Blue Book and the various colored gemstones organization had been provided the opportunity to review the full document. The response was received almost unanimously positive. At this stage, let me open a bracket on the immense, and I underline and use this term properly, immense contribution by the president of ICA, Clement Sabah, and many other officers in order to reach a condition to talk and give a serious practice contribution to the industry in order that the gemstones, color stones segment of our industry, if I could say that, as part of the family, is so important for us, especially, and obviously I don't forget India. Pramod is looking at me and said, what about Jaipur? I don't forget India. But you were there with the Gems and Jewelry Export Promotion Council to help as well, and I have to mention the AGTA as well, and also the contribution that personally Mr. Cody gave into our mutual activity in order to let the color, gemstones, and jewelry industry, with specific reference to Thailand, apart India, of course, to grow dramatically. We want to see happiness in the jewelry people, color stone jewelry people in Thailand and in the world. We want to see satisfaction in what they do. And the contribution, Madam General Director, that you are giving, I don't need to please you, you know me. We have been together, and I'm telling you because from time to time, having governments and people like you be part of this family. You know, somehow, not only the Thai gems and jewelry industry has adopted you, but also the world jewelry industry has adopted you. So stay with us. Thank you very much. Let's go ahead. In April, during the OECD Precious Metal Forum in Paris, where Mr. Sabah was playing a key role when at the beginning of the year I was at the OECD in Paris talking with the top management, I formally requested the presence of Mr. Clement Sabah to address the audience in the specific area of the color gemstones, and you did a great job, Clement. We signed a memorandum of understanding with the Color Gemstones Working Group. It is a committee made up of representatives of Tiffany, Swarovski, Richmond, Musso Companies, Louis Vuitton, and Hennessy, Caring, and Gemfield. And my good friend Sean is here and was represented. Thank you very much, Sean, for your constant contribution. The working group is facilitated by the Dragonfly Initiative, which is an advisory firm that supports businesses in the precious metal, gemstone sector to create environmentally, economically, and socially responsible enterprises. What we are doing together is creating a suite of tools and resources that will be made available free of charge from an online platform, which essentially will enable companies to implement the principles outlined in the Responsible Sourcing Blue Book. I am confident that this will be presented at the incoming CIBSO Congress in Bahrain, middle November. What tools are we talking about? For example, the Responsible Sourcing Blue Book recommends that every company have a written policy relating to responsible sourcing, which both guides their actions but also serve as a reference for their own members of staff. Our platform will include templates of policy documents that they can select from, adapt for their companies, and introduce to their businesses. Any other type of tool that will be available on the platform will be a questionnaire which companies would be expected to provide to both suppliers and clients in an effort to meet the basic requirement of know your counterpart. As I said earlier, companies are being asked to map their distribution system in order to be able to assess elements of risk. KYC is an essential component of that. Let me stress once again, what we have created is not a comprehensive compliance system of the type that one would need to create to become RJC compliant. It is voluntarily applied, but is designed to enable even the smallest of companies understand what responsible sourcing entails, and then the most fundamental level being doing due diligence in their businesses. We understand and appreciate the concern of many in the colored gemstones sector, and firmly agree that no ethical and responsible company should be discriminated against because they lack the financial resources to properly implement and maintaining a cumbersome compliance system. We have to help them, we have to educate them, and we have to offer the base in order to let them upgrade easily. At the same time, we do not agree with those who contend that only because the company size, it would be given a free pass when it comes to responsible sourcing, just as there are basic standard of practice when it comes to grading and disclosure, which all members of our industry are obliged to maintain. The same is true with responsible sourcing. Everyone can do something to the best of their ability. Clément, we have talked extensively about all this issue, and I think that we are totally aligned to go forward in this very sense, and obviously we are delighted to listen to you at the next CIBSO Congress, and I think that you will be happily surprised. Let us be honest with ourselves. The demand that we document where goods come from and where they are going to is not unreasonable. Your governments expect each and every one of you to maintain orderly books and follow basic accounting practices. In other words, you are already doing due diligence in your business. We consider the implementation of responsible sourcing norms as a process of continual improvement. Allow me to quote from the Responsible Sourcing Blue Book. In particular, the policy recognized that the supply chain for colored gemstones are highly dependent on artisanal mining source and small and medium-sized enterprises. Therefore, not all supply chain will be able to implement this guidance immediately, and therefore this guidance should be regarded as a roadmap based on principle of continuous improvement. It is not, I'm finishing. I saw you already, I saw you already held by Henry also, you know, because but my weight still is in carats, it's not in kilos. Huh? Okay, I go over. There is another element in a question that is not directly related to due diligence supply chain integrity, but rather to a social economic role that was as industry play in the countries and regions in which we are active. As you are all aware, we obtain a great deal of our raw materials in countries that are underdeveloped and are in dire need of outside investment and trade. Many of the countries that are rich sources, colored gemstones, are located close to the bottom of the UN Human Development Index. Of the 188 nations listed, Madagascar, for example, is number 158. Mozambique is number 181. Now, in CIPJO, we have defined sustainability as the generation of sustainable grassroots and social opportunities. And here we refer to opportunities both in the mineral extraction and in the jewelry industries, and also in other economic sectors which are secondary beneficiaries of the investment made by and revenues generated by precious gems and minerals, and I'm going to conclude. We also need to draw a distinction between industrialized mining, was the previous one, sorry, industrialized mining operation and small-scale and artisanal mining. You can see the difference yourself. We have a part where the larger area, gold, diamonds, and colored gemstones is 80, 85, and 20%. On the contrary, the artisanal mining are 20, 15, and colored gemstones 80%. So, was as an industry have a role to play, protecting the interest of miners, regardless how big or small they are, and their dependents, and providing them not only with the capital, but also with the skill and knowledge necessary to build sustainable societies. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me another 15 seconds to say the sensation I have here today is exceptional. I am not a person that is easily impressed. In this case, I am impressed not only by the number of people who are sitting in the room, but the quality of people sitting in the room. On behalf of the greater jewelry industry, ladies and gentlemen, it's me thanking you for what you are doing for this industry and your great contribution to all of us. Thank you very much.